Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for standing by. Welcome to the Here and Now Mindfulness, Meditation, and Stress Management conference call. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Following the presentation, we will conduct a question-and-answer session. Instructions will be provided at that time for you to queue up for questions. If anyone has any difficulties hearing the conference, please press the star followed by 0 for operator assistance at any time. We'd like to remind everyone that this conference call is being recorded on Thursday, May 14th, 2009 at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll now turn the conference over to Fran Turner, Program Director. Please go ahead.
Hello, Ovarian Cancer Canada welcomes you to this session of our telephone education series for women with ovarian cancer and for their caregivers. This is the last session of this spring, and the series will be resuming again in the fall. And I welcome you to today's presentation, Here and Now, Mindfulness, Meditation, and Stress Management. I'm Fran Turner, Program Director of Ovarian Cancer Canada. Ovarian Cancer Canada endeavors to provide women with ovarian cancer and their caregivers with information they need, and I sincerely hope that you'll find this presentation interesting and very helpful. At the completion of the session, you can address your questions, and actually, this is what we normally do, but in this session, if you would like to address a question to Dr. Specka in the course of his presentation, you can punch in star 1, and that will queue you up, and the operator will be alerted. So if you have a question, please do that in the course of the presentation, and there will, of course, be an opportunity at the end of the session. This session, like the previous ones in the series, will be available on YouTube at www.youtube.com/Ovarian Cancer Canada, and it is posted in 10-minute segments to make it easy for you to listen and to return to later. So please subscribe to YouTube and listen to this and the other sessions that are posted there. I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Specka. He's a professor and researcher in the Departments of Oncology and Educational Psychology at the University of Calgary and Alberta, and works in the Department of Psychosocial Resources at the Tom Baker Cancer Center and the Alberta Cancer Board. And so, Michael, if you would just like to go ahead.
Thank you, Fran. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm just going to begin with a couple of introductory remarks. I'm going to talk a little bit about the mindfulness-based stress reduction model, which is a standardized intervention that has been used in healthcare quite a bit. And I'm going to then talk about mindfulness more generally. And finally, especially, I want to actually make this an opportunity to begin to practice a little bit. I want it to be an opportunity for an experience of mindfulness. So I will invite you to practice along with me. I will try to lead us through a bit of a mindfulness session towards the middle of the presentation today. Now, normally I'm working with people in the flesh, and it's a very interactive experience. Given the format today, I would just maybe recommend that if questions do come up, if you could maybe make a note to yourself so that later on perhaps we'll have a chance to address specific questions. You know, the practice of mindfulness is so important. It's easy to think we can hear the ideas about mindfulness and understand it, but my experience tells me that really we only begin to understand with the actual experience of practicing and learning over a period of time, and that this kind of perspective of learning is so much different than the intellectual, and really does not, the rational or intellectual approach to understanding this topic doesn't do it justice. So after today's session, perhaps you'll be curious enough to follow through, and maybe some of you already are practicing meditators in some form or another. We'll have some thoughts about how to begin and continue exploring mindfulness in your life. So I'm a clinical psychologist, and although I do teach and do research, my primary work is day-to-day is sitting with cancer patients and their families and helping them find ways to move through this experience of cancer. Some 15 years ago or more now, I was sitting at lunch with some of my colleagues, and we were just talking about how we deal with stress, and all of us had our own practice of meditation and yoga, various kinds, various backgrounds, and we just decided, why aren't we offering this to our patients? This is what we do. This is how we deal with the stress of working in this environment where the emotions run so high and institutions are not as responsive as we'd like them to be. It's very challenging, and this is what we do. Why don't we teach that instead of just doing traditional counseling and psychotherapy and so forth? So we began, and soon thereafter we became aware of Dr. Kabat-Zinn's program, the MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program at the UMass Medical Center in Worcester, Massachusetts. It was featured on Bill Moyer's program, Healing in the Mind. So we said, why not let's adapt to what we've been doing to more closely conform to that model so we can have some good comparability, especially for research purposes. So we began to do that. And we've been offering the program since the mid-1990s here at Tom Baker Cancer Center in Calgary. So I'm going to talk mostly about the practical, the experiential aspects of this, but just briefly mention that, the research on mindfulness and how it affects health and well-being is burgeoning, it's growing rapidly, and it's happening all over the world, and the evidence is growing, supporting the utility and the value of mindfulness practices as applied to a whole range of clinical problems, including those that are generated by the cancer experience. So MBSR was explicitly formed to address health-related problems. It's an attempt to take from these thousands of year-old traditions of what we call wisdom traditions, understand their essence, and apply it from a more Western rational scientific framework, so that it's not part of the reason for that is just to establish and be able to talk about these practices to the people that run our institutions, to make it more understandable to the Western perspective. But at essence, there's very little to distinguish the traditional approaches to the understanding of the mind and mindfulness-based stress reduction. However, the focus in MBSR is on stress reduction. Mindfulness has much broader application to life, and we will perhaps be able to explore that a little bit. If you are experiencing cancer, I don't think I need to belabor the sources of stress that occasion that. But some of the things we sometimes think about are just the distress and stress of this intrusion into life, the ability to cope with the treatments that are often so arduous, controlling or managing the difficult symptoms attending both cancer, but also the treatment, the pain, nausea, fatigue, anxiety, the sense of loss of control, especially for folks that have gotten through, people that have gotten through their first treatments, often then that issue of uncertainty about the future and fear of recurrence. The shifting in the sense of who one is in the world, the sense of identity, and the meaning of this experience of cancer in life. And often for many, the cancer actually occasions this perspective of revisiting what my life is all about. And finally, of course, death and dying and what that fears attendant to those ideas are also often, I think, helpfully addressed from perspectives that grow from mindfulness practice.